Hi everyone, and welcome back to the JKW Woodworks channel. First off, say hi to Zeus. He's our dog and he wanted to learn how to play chess. Last week we made a video on a single-side epoxy chessboard, and we decided to expand that idea and make a double-sided epoxy chessboard. So stick around and we'll show you how to make this. First off, we're going to be taking some white oak pallet wood that I got, and we're going to be ripping it down into strips, followed by some walnut that I had from scraps, that we're going to be ripping that down into strips as well. Now, we got this idea because of the different thicknesses in the wood. As you can see, the walnut is a little over an inch thick, and the pallet wood is obviously much thinner. Instead of planing the wood down, we decided to use it to our advantage and just pour epoxy. Now, after the first glue up's over, we're going to be taking it back to the table saw and cutting more strips. Now, if you're going to be making one of these on your own, make sure you use a lot of wood glue so you get good squeeze out and the epoxy won't be flowing through the cracks. Here I'm going to be using my homemade jointer to just clean up some of the edges. If you want to learn more on how I made this jointer, I'll put the link to the video in the top right of this. So right here, I'm going to be using some plywood strips that I had from the last video to make some borders for the epoxy pour. After making 2 of these boards, I think in the future, I'm going to use pallet wood instead of plywood for these borders. The plywood really gets teared up in the planing process, where I think the pallet wood would hold up a better. So right here I'm going to be mixing up some liquid glass, clear, deep pour epoxy. This epoxy takes about 3 to 4 days to cure. Now I'm just going to create a thin, clear coat to seal the wood first before I do the actual epoxy pour. That way I get rid of all the cracks and hopefully have no mistakes where epoxy can slip through. If you make a mistake like that, it could be costly since epoxy is not cheap. Now we're on to the actual epoxy pour itself. For today's pour, I'm going to be using Dragon Breath Pigment. The really unique thing about Dragon's Breath is that it's color shifting. It has orange, red, and pink hues in it so that it can change colors depending on the lighting. Now as you can see, I made a mistake. Even with the borders and tape, it still spilled over. However, it was isolated just to 2 corners, so it wasn't a huge mistake, and I was able to re-pour some more and let it cure. Now we're going to plane down the piece itself, and we're going to start with the Dragon's Breath side. Since the black HDPE board is still on the bottom, it's going to give us a flat and level surface. And then as you can see, it plops right off, and then we'll plane down the traditional side. Now I'm just going to be trimming off that plywood border since it got destroyed in the planing process. So right here I'm going to be taking some 1x2s and cutting them down to size to make a border for the board itself. Now that all the glue is dried, I'm going to be starting the sanding process. For the sanding process, I'm going to do my normal routine, starting at 80 grit, going to 120, 180, and then finishing with 220 grit. The difference in this build is I'm going to be water popping both sides, not just the top side, like I did in the last build, since both sides technically could be the top side. After putting a round over on all the edges with my router, I decided to put my logo in the middle of the board with my wood burning iron. Now I'm going to be using some mineral spirits to clean it up for the staining and finishing process. For the stain, I decided to use a dark walnut stain. And as a reminder, all the tools and products that I use in this video will be linked in the description below. After the stain dried, I took off the tape and saw that it bled through a little bit. So I'm taking a sanding sponge and I'm just going around the corners trying to remove all that extra stain. For the finish, I'm going to be using shellac. I'm going to be applying 3 coats on both sides. And let's look at the finished product. On the epoxy side, I think it turned out well. I really love the Dragon's Breath pigment. It's probably my favorite pigment that I have for epoxy pours. The color is just so unique and just awesome. However, I think the traditional side beats the epoxy side. Look at it. It just stands out and it just looks so clean and crisp. There's something about it that just catches my eye that I really love. Hopefully in the near future we'll be getting some plans out for these builds that you can find on Etsy. We'll put a link in the description below. As always, we're grateful that you watched this video, and if you feel like we earned a like and subscribe, please do. We really appreciate it. And let us know what you think in the comments below about this build. Thanks.